Well, hello everybody. This is the Auto Hawker podcast, and we're doing something a little different tonight. We're starting a new series that is going to be introducing guests and having a guest panel to talk about current events. As you know, we live in times that are very interesting, and it seems almost that every day, every week, something crazy happens, and at some point, it has to come to a head. But right now, we're just living in the Wild West, figuratively. So tonight, I have back with us Willyyeet. Willyyeet joined us on an unpublished episode that may or may not get released. And me and him have been doing some work privately on a series that's going to be released in the future. But Willyyeet, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Willyyeet. Big history nerd. Uh, just love talking politics and all that in general, and I have general interest in world events and politics.
Alrighty, Willie, but thank you for coming on tonight with us.
No problemo.
And down on the bottom hand, we have Trey Daniel, who is a I say recently. I've known Trey for about a year now. Um, Good guy. Trey, just introduce yourself. Don't let me do the talking.
Yeah, Trey. I go by Trey 50 Daniel on Twitter or whatever X, I guess. But mostly, I'm a developer by day. That's kind of my bio: developer by day, gamer by night. And you know, most of my thing is talking about social, political, commentary and stuff like that on my timeline. So I come across something that irks me, I like to talk about it. So
Well, thank you for coming on, Trey. I'm glad you're with us tonight. So tonight, as the past 2 weeks have been very interesting. I mean, we went from an Assad-backed Syria to now a country basically ran by ISIS and Al Qaeda. We have seen Daniel Penny released. Basically, they decided that he was not guilty of murder, and now he's a free man. Also, we're dealing with a assassination of a healthcare CEO and the mystery behind the murderer, as well as mysterious drones that are flying all around the Northeast. And fortunately, none of us live in the Northeast, so we don't have to worry about them too much. But it's still kind of scary. So, gentlemen, do you think we should start with I would say the more later news, which is that of Assad?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's more, uh, in terms of the world, very impactful.
Well, you say it's impactful, Willie. How do you? I want you to explain to me maybe why you think it's impactful that the Assad government fell, and what you think that means for just the general the Middle East.
Well, in terms of history, it's historical for one reason. It's the last Ba'athist regime in all of the Middle East to fall, and well, nominally secular by Middle Eastern standards. I mean, they upheld the rights of even the Christian minority, and I think it's southwestern Syria around the Mediterranean coast. It was also a stabilizing force against Islamist elements in the region, and it was a very long-standing adversary of the Israeli state and the Turkish state, and most notably recently, the United States was heavily involved against the Assad regime. And in terms of non-Western governments, it was a very big ally of Russia. I mean, the Russian fleet would forward stage a large portion of its naval assets in Syria because it's a year round warm water port that's not restricted by the Bosphorus Straits. So, in terms of how big it is on a scale of possibilities, it's massive.
Yes, um, I would say I have to
speaking
agree
of
with you.
Russia, there's something that I just saw there, breaking news, I guess, kind of talking about them dismantling an air base that they had in Syria due to the fall of the Assad regime. So it seems like Russia may be kind of pulling out their support for the Syrian government, I guess, under the new sort of Al Qaeda backed regime.
The thing that I found interesting about this whole ordeal. Is the Syrian civil war has been going. It went on for what? Probably since
It
for
was
about
2011.
2011. So it went on for about 14 years, 13, 14 years, give or take. And it seemed like the war was mainly basically the Syrian government crushing rebels, and that the rebels were not organized. That they were, you had the
The
Western
U.S.
media.
government started to supply. Well, they weren't organized until the U.S. government started
Yeah,
supplying them
they're like
weapons
the
and equipment.
Kurdish militias that we were already
But they,
supplying.
but it seemed like the Western media made it look like, oh, like these rebels in Syria are almost like these. Only way I
Freedom
comes like
fighters.
yeah,
Yeah.
communista, like Rage Against the Machine type, like down with the system, man, kind of people. And then it's you look in like during the Trump presidency, it's like, oh no, they're not like liberals, they're like ISIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of them are jihadists because, I mean, where they are.
Well, I watched a documentary, back probably at the end of the summer, and it was about suicide bombers in the Syrian civil war. And yeah, none of those guys were down with liberal government. I can assure you that. They were down with an AK and a explosive vest, ready to go full Ghazi for Allah. But yeah, very not what the 2012 Western media of the Obama administration was making it out to be.
I'm sure, as you know, according to every single Ukraine flag Twitter account, um, this was just freedom and democracy on the doorsteps of Bashar al-Assad, led by a actual member of Al Qaeda.
Well, I guess freedom and democracy are fine, just as long as you are will do whatever the United States tells you, and you just fight Russia. It's okay.
Well, I
So
mean, democracy and freedom are characterized by jihadism or oligarchy. I mean,
yeah, rather than same-sex marriage or whatever you like, which from my understanding, a lot of the Eastern peoples, maybe not marriage, but they have problems with that. That's yeah. I'm just gonna
Unless
leave
it's
it
marrying your
there.
cousin.
Yeah,
Then we're
yeah,
okay with it.
yeah. Anyway, the so is Russia already pulled out her troops from Syria?
essentially.
Okay, because I know Iran and what I'm just going to call Lebanese forces have pulled out.
It seems
Um,
like a slow departure based on what they're saying.
my thing though about it is that war that was so long, and it seemed like Assad's forces were winning the majority of it, to just all of a sudden, this quick, the tidal wave of the rebels winning the war. I mean, do y'all would y'all concur with me that this is probably something that was building up over the past few years? I mean, I saw the HTS video. Those dudes were wearing, like modern, like Mitch style helmets. I think I even saw like night vision goggles in it. You know,
Yeah, they're fully
It,
they're fully kitted and backed by the U.S. government.
yeah, they
Like,
look
it
more like
would
fighters in
be
Ukraine, and they look like people from like 2017 Syrian combat footage. You
It
know,
reminds me specifically of one other CIA-backed coup in Guatemala, Operation PB Success, where it was a significantly smaller force that we were backing, but through air power and lots of deception, like we convinced the Guatemalan government that they were completely outnumbered. There was no hope of winning,
kind
and
of
they
a
just
bluff,
marched into the
right?
capital. And I think a lot of this was we used I think we demoralized the Assad regime's army over the years. I think that he kind of rested on his laurels, not assuming there could be another uprising of this scale after putting down most of them, and a very hesitant. I think Russia may be a little bit more overstretched than they let on, since they're having to put so much into Ukraine while still fulfilling other export orders for certain equipment where they can. To where Syria seems like it was not a primary concern. So I think it was just hesitancy on their part to react as well.
And now that now that hesitancy is costing them, because we see that Israel and Turkey are basically going to make a Syrian sandwich. And this is people talk like this. Don't take my words wrong for this, what I'm about to say. But it seems like whatever happened last year on October 7th has actually been like a geopolitical win for Israel. They basically had that as a casus belli to essentially take over Palestine. It basically gave them the right to essentially just fight anybody that disagreed with them. I mean, you're seeing like a full scale invasion in Lebanon. Now you're starting to see a seizure of Syrian land, and I don't think they're going to stop. I think they're just going to use this as long as they can to take as much land as possible. And from what I'm seeing, it's not like they're it's not like, oh, this is like General Patton's Third Army in World War II, cutting huge slices, but they're making slow progress, taking time by time. And I mean, this is something I think the Netanyahu administration will be remembered for years to come as a great success. Now we look at like Trump or Reagan. I think the Netanyahu regime administration, they will be viewed as, in Israel as a net positive that created a golden age for their country.
I think so too. I think that the big thing to look out for now is what they do against Iran. There's reports they're going to try to strike their nuclear infrastructure. I think this is setting up for a regime change in Iran more than anything. Another big thing that's allowed them to push into southeastern Syria, as well as they have, is a majority of the population there, well, southwestern Syria, sorry, where their border is it's a large Druze area, and they are very anti-Assad and one of the more pro-Israel groups within Syria. The historical significance of this for them is the fact that since I believe 1968, Syria has been run by the Ba'athist Party and has been a major geopolitical adversary of Israel for that entire time. So it's been around 80 some odd years, I think. I'm not the best at math, but it's going on a century that they were an adversary, their prime adversary for most of it, save Egypt.
Yeah, and and that's the thing too that I wonder about. You look at Syria, and it seems like it's more of a mess than what Iraq is. And my thing I've heard is that I've heard Iraq is going to be deploying troops to its borders, and they're setting up defenses just in case Israel makes incursions into Iraq. I highly doubt that, but I was under the
I don't
impression
think they're going to
Iraq
do
was
that with the whole Gaza war, and and potentially, Al Qaeda, if they're seizing, if they're basically seizing Syria, then it's going to be, they could potentially set up to have some conflict with Israel as well. I would think, but
I was
I
under
could
the
be
impression
wrong.
that Iraq was more or less a U.S. controlled vassal state, and that it wasn't
Kinda to an extent. They're not openly adversarial, but they're also um, somewhat understandably not too keen on us being there. I mean, we've massively decreased our troop presence over the years. I don't know what it stands at now. I can check real quick, but
I mean, probably friendlier than Afghanistan at this point, but
yeah,
still not. We're still not like allies,
I
or
think
we're still
everywhere's
not
friendlier
friendly
than
terms.
Afghanistan.
Yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
they did send us a great congratulations that we did not elect a woman. So
Yeah, and that's a lot of people were saying things like, "Oh, like we were gonna go back and invade Afghanistan after we lost." It's like, I think we left Afghanistan for a reason, and I think it just shows you that that whole war wasn't actually about hunting down the people that took out the Twin Towers.
I mean, there's plenty of proof that it wasn't. Whether it be, so there's all kinds of other reasons and that's what's funny with whenever, especially even arguing with libertarians or whatever about the sort of idea behind geopolitical conflict, and they don't understand that, like, if you're going to have there, a lot of them have this delusion, especially of like free trade, but trade is never free because it can always be hijacked. It can always be attacked. It's always there's always economic impacts in relations to trade. So when you have to keep your trade lines open. You can't have people attacking. Just like what were the actual pirates, like the a few years ago or a couple of years ago.
Oh,
The
Somali pirates.
Somali pirates, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So those, things like that. If your trade networks are going to be attacked and disrupted, and especially like after something like the pandemic or whatever, even though that was like largely manufactured, if you have something disrupting all of your supply lines and everything, it's going to be very difficult for you to kind of run your economy and run your country in the way that you want to do. So
This is very
I think
true.
so. That's kind of the impact that we're seeing whenever we have to introduce these sort of conflicts to like something like with Taiwan. The largest chip manufacturer. Until we onshore chip manufacturing in the U.S., which doesn't seem to be very likely, even after all the NVIDIA and Intel investment. Intel is basically collapsing at this point, which is hilarious because I thought they were going to be a super long term, company around for effectively ever, but they collapsed really quickly. But with virtually no other in-house chip manufacturer, I mean, we're relying on Taiwan for a lot of our computing power. So, and especially with them trying to get quantum computing on board, and they need bigger and better chips or more efficient chips that they're going to need to have produced. And so Taiwan becomes a strategic thing. So that's why, like, it's funny, arguing with libertarians or arguing, with these other people because they don't understand that the reason that we're getting involved with these things are because of these external reasons. It's not just like we want to fight China or we want to fight, like, oh, we're just picking a fight with China or we're just picking a fight with Venezuela. I was arguing with somebody the other day about like, okay, like Trump put sanctions on Venezuelan oil. Like we're not going to buy Venezuelan oil. We're going to, attack that sort of vector of Venezuela. We don't like that regime, the Maduro regime, and those are the kind of things that baggage that comes with these sort of economic and geopolitical issues.
And when we look at the social implications of the interventions that this brings about, a lot of it through our economic interest and other geopolitical interest, it's contributed a lot to the mass migration crisis that we're seeing in the West, undoubtedly, at this point. Um, and a lot of the destabilization that we've done in like Latin America, for example, has also contributed that to us from the southern border and the influx of drugs because these countries are just not doing great. Some of them on their own merits, some of them on ours for a long time ago, but there's a lot of complicated history there. Um, so yeah, there's a tangible aspect on people's day-to-day lives in terms of economic and social implications from these interventions.
Interesting. Now I remember about a week ago there were rumors that Assad was dead. Changing topic, and his plane lost. They lost like its tracker or whatever, and then turns out he's in Russia alive. And if rumors are true, he is
He's
becoming
seeking like
a
asylum.
doctor. Well, my thing is, if he sets up this eye doctor clinic, just seeing how like the Russians and Iranians basically abandoned him. Do you not have like a sneaking suspicion that he might be assassinated by his own people
It's
wanting?
a very real possibility, but also so from what I understanding of Assad, I looked into his personal history and I've talked it over with other people to confirm this. He was never meant to be the leader of Syria. He was not the heir to his father's Hafez al-Assad. It was his brother, but his brother smashed himself going about 80 to 100 miles an hour into the side of a wall in Damascus, while Bashar was in London working as a orthopedic doctor, and was called back because he was the second son, just next in line, and he was not really groomed for the position. all things said. So it made me just feel be that if you want another explanation, and I don't know how much I believe this, he could have just wanted out.
Yeah, and that's very true. I mean, shoot, I've been in places in my life where, you know, I would say even to some degree that I'm doing things right now that I kind of wish, like, man, like, the only reason why I'm doing these things is that somebody's got to do it. Um, you know, and you want out, and at the same time, you feel bad if you could step out. I mean, because we can all step out on these things. Bashar didn't have to. He didn't have to be president, but what kind of son would you be if you're? I'll just give you this analogy. What kind of son would you be if your father was the king of a country and you're the prince and he dies and you just said, nope, nope, I'm leaving, I'm quit. I'm going to another country, or I'm just not being king. The country would be chaos. You know,
Utter, especially if you are the only option. And at that point, he was really the only option.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is that, sometimes in life there's things that are dealt to you that you have to accept the mantle. You have to accept the
But I
responsibility.
feel like he didn't fully take the mantle in the way that he needed to if he wanted to maintain that, and that's where like like the you were talking about the like quashing the rebellions. Really, I think he did a poor job of handling that, because he should have just essentially crushed these rebellions very early on, very harshly. And instead, I think he was kind of trying to play toward this sort of like, he didn't want to give the rebels the sort of angle of, that's one of the things too, is when you're thinking about this, if there was, because like even in the U.S., if there was some sort of like secession movement or something like that, like how sympathetic is the global geopolitic going to be to a seceding portion of the United States? It depends on the situation. So you have to have sympathy. You have to have sort of a sympathetic situation. And that's what I guess maybe he was trying to avoid, giving them a more sympathetic situation of like,
I
okay,
think he
I
also
watched this.
might have kind of knew that there was already going to be one large portion of the world that was against him, whether he liked it or not, and
Right.
wanted to see him gone anyway. So he may have been trying to save whatever little face he could to the international community to get some support.
Possibly so, possibly so. Um, I just don't, I just don't foresee a world leader living in exile like this without people coming for him. And he probably knows this, but I just feel like politics is a game that almost like the mob. Like when you get in, you can't get out.
I mean, Trotsky learned that lesson the very hard way with an ice pick to the back of the head.
Yep, down in Mexico.
The
The
exact wrong place you'd expect the Russians
you
to go.
know, but and speaking of, kind of jumping to a completely new topic, since we're kind of pressed for time tonight. And it kind of, in some ways, it's kind of, a man getting free and possibly facing you know more repercussions. Is Daniel Penny is not guilty. And Trey, I know me and you were talking about this privately when we were getting ready for this episode, and I believe you said something about no, no, that's in terms of the CEO, which we'll get to that later. But anyway, Daniel Penny is a free man. Um, what do you think that this means? You think this is a good? Obviously, it's a good thing. But do you think that there is it means that we have a chance as citizens, or do you think this is still a failure on the system for us getting to this place to begin with?
I think it's a little bit of both, all right? And I know that's kind of a cop out answer, but I think that's the truth. I don't think we could take everything as completely one way or the other. On one hand, it shows that we still have a problem. These terrible, terrible prosecutors throughout the country that are propped up by leftist billionaires. And on the other hand, still, even in deep, deep blue New York City, there was a not guilty verdict, not just a mistrial, not just a we're going to put this off later and have him try it again to try to get him again. A complete and total acquittal of a man for doing what was obviously right. So if you want to look at it from the top down perspective, it's still bad because we have prosecutors like Alvin Bragg in New York and all across the country, honestly, to a stupid degree where I can't believe it's not illegal to buy AGs. And on the other hand, there seems to be a bottom up kind of resistance to this idea.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of angles to go here. I mean, even this still bodes poorly for the sort of like gender discussions, like even because the fact that he was charged, there was a woman there, she issued a statement saying effectively that she thought that Jordan Neely deserved, to live, despite doing all claiming, he wanted to murder everyone, or unalive, I guess. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of like fallout from this, regardless, because there's precedent to continue pushing charges against people who do this kind of stuff, and the sentiment, like there's still a split sentiment. There's not sort of a consensus of like this was good behavior. There's still a lot of people who, especially particularly if you follow like the discourse on Twitter, there's a lot of people, especially in the Black community, who are like BLM types, who are basically saying, hey, if they can kill us, literally the BLM leader came out was saying, if they can kill us, maybe we need to do vigilante justice for all. Yeah, effectively. So I think that while for his sake, it's good that he was sort of exonerated and acquitted for that. But I still think that the fact that this is going to be a contingent point going forward is going to leave it to where we're still going to have these sort of conflicts come up every now and then whenever someone, especially particularly with racial connotation, these are going to be a huge issue.
I'm pretty sure you've seen the meme of it on Instagram, but it appears that, let's see, we had Kyle Rittenhouse and now Daniel Penny, but Derek Chauvin obviously does not get the same treatment, I guess because he's a cop.
That's probably what it is. And just the general temperature of the country at the time, and there was significantly more jury intimidation going on with the Derek Chauvin trial. There was still a significant amount with the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, but also the judge in that case was pretty good and able to keep a lid on things, I think. In this case, from some of the backlash we've seen, I mean, there was demonstrations. They weren't quite as lively as they were in 2020, which is somewhat of a sign that there may be some demoralization. I'm not going to go so far to say as I know too much what's going on within that movement, nor do I really want to an extent.
It
But
just seems very muted. Like
yeah,
that's where I think they're at. Is they're just like they're going to respond. They're going to react to everything. Like that seems to be the modus operandi.
but I also wonder how much more of it now is just a sectarian section of the population that's devoted to that ideal more
Yeah,
than
and you
it
said
has
that,
a general hold on like your average normie, like it
and
did
you
in
and you
2020.
said that the wind is knocked out of him, and I think the Kamala race. I think a lot of these people really thought she was going to win, and when she didn't win, and they're getting Lord willing 4 more years of Trump, they're it's just completely sucked all life out of them, and I think that's why we're going to get into it later. I think you're going to see them also. You're going to see them be kind of like down when it comes to doing quote unquote legal activities, but I think you're going to start seeing them probably jump to more radical activities, as we'll probably talk about here in a few minutes when we talk about the healthcare CEO situation.
Yeah, there's a so the thing is, I think that within the average like leftist, from what I've seen, most of them have just been spouting conspiracy theories on TikTok about how Elon Musk is hacking the election with satellites and all that. But more so, I think that within you're going to see a stratification of effect on like the far fringe of the movement they have going on. where I think you can see some violent reprisal. I don't know how much that helps them in the current social and political landscape, because I mean, there's not much appeal when you're getting into that side of everything to the average person, because it is just so inherently chaotic and anarchic in ideology.
Yeah, this fair.
With at least with like some of maybe the more further to the right, there is at least some economic, and I'm not even saying far right, but when you think about Jan 6th, which was the FBI op that happened a few years back, um, you know, at least then with Trump, it was like, okay, there's still like him personally, the leader of that movement, is not some fringe radical as I tried to paint him. There's the economic aspect of it. There's a lot of even the immigration aspect of it's caught on more, which I think is a positive sign for the future in terms of political, well, public opinion on the matter. But there's not much that's really appealing to the far fringe of the left, to the average person in say Ohio or Tennessee.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I think it's because now they're the average leftist is not appealing to the sort of class thing anymore.
They're appealing for
They're
this thing on a far, and like the gender issues and LGBT issues, which like your average person's like, it's kind of weird how far you've taken it.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
I would
it's like
definitely
the
agree with that.
abortion. Basically, they're losing on all of these issues because you have like, okay, abortion up to birth. Well, nobody really wants that per se. Like even the people who want it to be allowed or whatever.
They're
They
safely they lost the safe, legal, and rare crowd. I mean, that kind of your
yeah
baseline liberal position because they started pushing for even post-birth abortions.
Yeah, they. Yeah, I mean, you could say that that's the good thing about their ideology is that they are so insane that once they, go to a certain limit, everybody's going to just tell them no. And it's like, regardless of, hey man, like, we're all chill here or
live and let
whatever.
live.
Yeah, live and let live. It's like, well, when you have like a purple haired, person that is it's very you don't know to call them sir or ma'am because they might get mad at you, and they have these radical ideas, and oh, they're also saying that they support violent radical actions. The average dude on the street just really isn't going to get behind that.
I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to even find on a lot of the more socially and well, just further to the right groups, finding people who are going to say we need to, support these violent radical actions because it's not the preferred outcome for most people. Like there is a sense of order that wants to be upheld within those ideologies to the point where most of the time it's not. Like we need to go out in the streets unless you're getting to the far, far fringe, which most people, even within maybe the lesser degrees of that, will be supportive of at all.
I think that's a good idea. And and speaking of this further, do you think I've never thought about it in Kyle Rittenhouse's case, but do you think Daniel Penny has like serious harm he needs to watch out for? Do you think he's actually in danger, or do you think all that is just
He needs to
blowing smoke?
get out of New York as fast as possible.
I
If he
think Daniel Penny has a lot. Like he's going to have a lot more danger for him just because, like, honestly, the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. People joked about it, like, okay, well, maybe he needs to watch his back now. But I really don't think they hate him as much as they
he
hate.
shot 3 white dudes.
Yeah, exactly. It's not him not strangling a black dude in the subway that was a Michael Jackson impersonator. Like that seems like a like
It was 3 pedophiles and wife beaters, actually, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, you have a harder time justifying why Kyle shouldn't have shot them more generally.
Yeah, yeah. Going on about violence and shooting people. What about the murder of Brian Adams? Was it not Brian? Was it
Brian
Brian Adams?
Thompson.
Brian Thompson.
Yeah,
Brian Adams, the summer of
the
'69
rock thing.
guy.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
do we? What do you? So I'm quite confused when it comes down to this, and I don't understand. Is this something that the right and the left are both getting behind, or is this or is this something that one side supports the murder of him and one side doesn't, or what? I'm sure you two could probably explain this better to me and our audience.
I think there is on the left just it was good they did it, and on the right there is a mix of it's bad, and then there's I mean he had it coming. Now, I don't agree with the latter because I don't think that murder and violence is the way to achieve realistic benefit for the problem here. I mean, all that's going to happen that came from this, really speaking, is that they're going to increase the price of security. They're going to hire a new CEO, and they're going to have to pay him a whole lot more because the last guy got domed. And they're going to pass the price on to the consumer. Like, that's what's going to happen. And, I understand the grievances that the supposed shooter, who I'm not even sure if he is, that's a big point of contention too. I understand his grievance. Like, that's something very personal. I mean, you and your mother have medical issues, and an insurance company won't cover it, and they have the highest rate of declines in the country. But shooting the CEO is not going to really have any appreciable effect on that. It may send a message, and I understand the message that you're screwing over the working man and his mother and just the innocent people, but also at the end of the day, he was still a father and a husband, and I can't condone it out of that.
Well, I mean, so while I, obviously we can't condone it. Like we're not just going to authorize murder because, and I understand where a lot of people were going with that. It was like we can't just authorize murder because then that basically authorizes everyone to just like murder you. I understood that sentiment, but like so there's four boxes of liberty. You get on your first you start off, you get on your soapbox. Then that's just you have to get it off your chest. Then you go to the ballot box. Well, you can't do anything about it at the ballot box. Well, you go to the jury box. Maybe maybe judges and the court cases can handle these situations. And then when those options are exhausted, you have the cartridge box.
And I understand the sentiment. Trust me, I
But
truly do.
I think we were talking about that this week, Trey, about what do they call it? Is the four somethings, and it's like the ballot box, the something
four
box,
boxes of liberty.
the
It's
four
the
boxes
soap.
of liberty.
You're on this. You get on your soapbox. The ballot box. You try your luck at the ballot box. Then you try the jury box. And then when that fails, the cartridge box. Which, like I said, I'm not condoning this, but there's no there's the average person has no recourse, and there's no way to like really combat this when these companies are effectively they're in cahoots with the entire government complex. Like there's a whole health insurance complex. They spend more on lobbying than almost any other industry. The healthcare lobby is by and large bigger, almost as big as or actually I think bigger than the military industrial complex lobby. So it's something where the average person has no recourse of handling or battling with it. They can argue till they're blue in the face. They can fight. They can go to court. But typically they lose because the companies set up their plans in such a way that they already have the lawyers on hand to combat it. So
And I completely agree that it's a very shady thing, and that there is really no recourse. My thing is, I don't know. My problem more is at this moment in time, I don't think it's beneficial for this to be the option to go to, because what we need is a complete system rehaul, and killing one man, even if there is some, I would say, legitimate grievances behind it, isn't going to solve it when the system is still at this height of its power.
Right, and my solution would have been that whoever is ideally if you had a leader with some cojones that was actually prepared to deal with it, that they if you elect someone who's ready to take on the challenge of this sort of giant healthcare complex. And what they do is they start jailing every single you imprison these people for life. You just say go through and each of these people who are responsible for this, you just start imprisoning them for life because you're corrupt, basically rooting out all that corruption, one at a time, taking those guys down and basically just putting them where they belong in prison for life because of what they're doing. And that would be the right thing to do. You're going through the process. You're not just indiscriminately murdering people, but I don't really think we have any leaders with the will to do something like that. That's where
It's a very conflicting thing for me too. I just feel the need to voice the one side of it.
Yeah, my communication with leftists, I don't have much communication with leftists for obvious reasons, but they seem to be just full on board. This guy's like the modern Robin Hood. This guy's a hero. This whatever. Basically, like, well, Brian Thompson's death is just one grave in a cemetery of millions that have died from inadequate health care. And that just points out, I guess, like the leftist mindset, is everything's about this, like, the system, man.
Well, it's also the way that they're going about it too is also sort of toward the egalitarian ends, because they're like, well, if this many people died because of this stuff, like, then killing one man is all, or killing, they obviously believe they need to kill more. Like, that's the idea behind it, but they believe like killing this one man is like taking taking the lives of a lot of these other people who he's taken the life of. So they're trying to do some sort of equity or equality in that sort of distribution of taking of life, and that's where I agree, it's wrong, like taking it in your own hands to just like take lives, is never going to be a really good solution for like 99% of problems.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up about the idea, I guess you'd say, the lunacy of in a world where everything is equal, because it's like there's some people in America that you just will not be able to get health care to. There's people that are just not reasonable, people that are really gone beyond saving in those terms, and
there's people who can afford to pay for it on their own, and to them, all the better to them, honestly.
yeah, it's just I mean, obviously the healthcare system has to be something's got to be done, but it's just I'm not one to speak on healthcare. Okay, I'll just leave it there.
I think it's just more, this whole situation is more emblematic of the problem with the interlinking of the system at the government level and the economic level at this point.
Yeah,
It's that parasitic nature being displayed.
and ultimately it comes down to this healthcare guy. He wasn't elected to that by the people, but the healthcare industry has such a massive control.
Well, and
of
also
the
he's
Fed.
not accountable. Like this is the
Yeah,
biggest thing is, and this is where I differed on with a lot of people is that. So I was actually getting arguments about whether or not a CEO actually enacts policy. And when I said, well, he authorized the setup of these denial of claims for policy for the company. And when like I said, I don't care. I'm not necessarily like anti-capitalist. Like people, I'm not against people making money. Like that's not something that I'm against. But when the premise of your company should be delivering care to people, and then the whole point of your business is centered around denying the claims of as many people as possible, then that's where like there's this ethical dilemma, because now you know there's no one to hold you accountable, and you authorize this decision as a CEO. Like you said I want my company policy to be to not deny 90% of claims.
I'll say
And
the right's perhaps biggest problem over the existence since maybe the Civil War, but probably going on a little past that. Um, is its kind of slavish devotion to the idea of capitalism as we have it now, which is just this very basic thing that has no room for, we need to make sure that the economic system upholds the social good and the good for society more generally, even if we're not going fully towards like a communistic wealth redistribution program. Bad actors shouldn't be using the economy to negatively impact a large swath of the population.
yeah, I mean, I think that's run rampant. I think that's the sort of like super mega free market libertarian
The
types.
only real times that I've seen corporations gone after is, funny enough, big tobacco, and firmly against that. Firmly.
Yeah, they hate big tobacco because they support Republican institutions. What was going to say? We'll probably leave that there since we're running down on the time. Um, the last thing I want to talk about this week, and this is something that as this past 2 weeks have gone on, I've just started seeing stuff about, and people always go on about UFOs and things like that. But what's y'all's take on this whole quote unquote drone thing going on in the Northeast?
Well, I mean, I think it's God's retribution upon the Yankees, but that's just my opinion.
Well, my thing about it is that the federal government apparently the other day came out and made some kind of comment about, oh, like we're going to like solve the problem or whatever. They issued like a statement saying something like, we're going to solve the problem, but then they said, oh, these are Iranian drones. And when the Trump, this is where I'm going to kind of link a conspiracy, I would say, to this. I say a conspiracy. I think it's more about like a conspiracy of what they'll use as a scapegoat. But I remember when Trump, the first assassination attempt with the little, Alvin and the Chipmunks kid, tried to shoot him or whatever. Um, by that I mean he just looked like he's like a chipmunk to me, like weird looking guy. Um, yeah, just the weird kid in Pennsylvania. They said that was like an Iranian backed assassination attempt on President elect
There was a
Trump.
claim of another one that there was going to be that
Yeah,
they.
you're thinking of the second one that they
My
stopped. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was the first one.
no. He was a lone actor, lone gunman, of course. Totally wasn't groomed by like any federal agency, obviously. Um, but I think the more reasonable thing, if you're going towards a more conspiratorial mind, would be okay. The foiled Iranian assassination attempt on Trump. Now this Iranian drone hub. The problem with killing a president who just won the popular vote is what happened with Kennedy, which is his legacy is just forever positive. There's absolutely nothing bad that you will find in contemporary American history about President Kennedy because he got his head blown off.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That I think that's going to be their scapegoat going forward. Is just something bad happens. Oh, blame Iran. Well, the thing is that they were Iranian drones. They would shoot them down in our airspace. Like they would do it immediately.
I don't know. I think there's some level of I do think that there are we've already seen this. I don't know if it's incompetence or just monitoring that they've kind of like they don't want to be too hands on with some of this because we saw that with the Chinese spy balloon. You remember those?
Yeah.
That's true. Yes. Yes.
So those they kind of just monitored them and allowed them to pass through. Which if they were really a threat, like they were made out to be, they would have been shooting them down immediately. But I think they wanted to do some like counter reconnaissance with that. So even if it is, they're just going to monitor them to see what they're doing and see if and especially it actually gives them plausible deniability if one of the drones does happen to like kill a U.S. citizen. Then it gives full authorization to like, okay, your drones killed a U.S. citizen. Now we get to nuke you into oblivion.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going, kind of thinking back to the Syria stuff. We're seeing a lot of these regime changes starting to happen in the Middle East. And I wonder if it's not just trying to formulate a casus belli against Iran.
Well, my thinking is that these drones are not even Iranian. That they're just federal government drones that they're just testing. They're just flying around. But, a lot of these people are going on that they're UFOs. And, I'm telling you, I'm a firm alien denier. It just makes me mad that, for years people keep on bringing up the UFO, everything's a UFO. Well, of course it's a UFO. You don't know if it's a AC-130 or a Boeing whatever, like 730. You know, so besides the autistic, point on that, um, I mean, I know people in real life, they're like, oh, these are aliens. Yep, these are aliens. And, the thing I've noticed, and this applies to Bigfoot, this applies to werewolves, and it applies to UFOs. First off, you don't read any reports of that stuff. You don't see anything about that stuff till like the 1950s. And then secondly, none of it stays the same. It always changes. It always progresses. It always gets more supernatural. And I think it's the same way with these UFOs. I've never heard of the Greys or flying saucers. I've never heard of anything about that till you start hearing reports out of it like in the 1950s. So to me, this is
Well, and that's whenever like some certain drugs are being in
And
more
also,
widely.
when you look at like how these things are described, especially in like when you're getting to like when we're developing the F-117 and the B-2, they're triangle shaped around that time, and they tend to look like experimental military aircraft from the time.
Yeah, I mean that's
well,
what I think all
and
it
actually,
is.
someone brought up like commenting on that point. There was let me see if I can find the actual post talking about it. But one of the posts was talking about these were maybe new forms of like VTOLs that were being tested by one of the military contractor companies, and they didn't want to like unveil. They didn't want it to like people to they didn't really want it to be known that these were being tested. But I mean, let's see if I can pull up the actual thing. So is it Terradynamics XP4 transwing drone, some kind of VTOL drone, being tested out by the Navy, likely running nighttime training missions. So yeah, they're saying basically this may be like Navy technology that is being tested, and then just people are happening to see it, and that's where they're like freaking out about it because they do kind of look non-uniform compared to what modern even modern drones are, because they're more experimental tech.
But the new thing that's coming up that I saw actually on Twitter before we started this space is that apparently people are now starting to shoot at them. And I think that when one gets shot down,
That was actually debunked.
America.
That was fake.
That was fake. Oh
yeah,
man, let's go proud of this country for a minute.
Well, I was about to say that that's going to prove whose they are because okay, that might be fake, but all it takes is 2 days from now and somebody shoots one down. I mean, it could happen, I guess. What I'm saying is, if they're federal government drones and they get shot down, well, somebody's going to jail or somebody's going to prison.
yeah.
If they're a foreign drone and they get shot down, I don't think you can. I don't think they can make up whatever they want to, but I don't think you can arrest somebody for shooting another country's drone down over U.S. soil.
I mean, they'll probably just get you on the like whatever firearm discharge kind of charge.
Yeah, they might tack something on that, but you can't give somebody like a life sentence for that.
Yeah.
Probably like a
Never make
civil
it to trial.
disturbance. Yeah, I don't even know if you'd make it. You might be in like a county jail for that, or you might just go bye-bye. I don't know.
That's kind of more what I was getting at. They may just kill you.
Yeah, possibly. We support our government here. We don't want to.
We love our cops, our law enforcement.
We just. I mean, I don't want to insinuate anything.
Look,
negative.
I'm the biggest fan of USB. Okay.
Listen, I love Hillary Clinton. Can I just say it? Great woman. Never did anything wrong, especially not in Haiti.
Shoot. Don't get me started on the Demon Republic.
Oh, let's not.
Of the Caribbean. But I think that was what I can't really think of anything else that's happened this week. I guess or past 2 weeks. I guess Dave Blunt's going in, performing his live concert with an oxygen tank on, sipping lean was kind of interesting. But that's people in this sphere don't really like rap music,
I
so
still
it's kind of
listen to 90s country music, and I mean, Otto saw what my number one artist on my Spotify recap was. It's certainly not my genre.
oh no, and I'm not really much into rap either. But it's kind of weird that and if you listen to the guy's music, you listen to like the lyrics. First off, rap music lyrics are pretty goofy. But I mean, the guy's rapping about pedos. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the actual word on here. So, pedos. He's rapping about pedos. Um, people, African American stock are kind of, especially the Diddy stuff. I think they kind of take that stuff a little like they don't laugh at it,
They
and
take it personal because
yeah.
it's kind of insulting to.
So it's like they don't play with the gay stuff, and I think they just and also too and then I watched the interview. Dave Blunt said that everybody in his music that he names is a real person. It's a real thing that happened. And I think another thing too is that a lot of these rappers. I mean, I know he got in the Snoop Dogg, but a lot of these rappers, I think, don't like him because he is naming too many people. And I think it's kind of like a black community thing of like which I don't think the white community has. There's not really a white community. Let's get that straight. But I think the black community has kind of trying to mark him as like, okay, he's one of us, but he's basically violating our norms. He's naming people. He's dropping the hard R in lyrics. Um, he's saying he's just saying all sorts of off the wall stuff in his songs, and I think it's just kind of like they don't like it. And if
And
this
you have
guy,
stuff with Jay-Z come out recently. I mean, it seems like a sensitive subject within probably that industry as well.
yeah, and I don't know how much us white people are supposed to talk about this stuff. Just for kind of we're not in the club, um, figuratively. Um, I don't know how much we need to really talk about this, but it's just kind of interesting to watch, just as a casual observer. Somebody that likes to get a laugh. You know, it's just weird to see. Um, it's like
I
actually that
think
you
it's
have real beef.
just funny to see the state of celebrity in general now, because now it's like the more absurd we can go. Like, okay, Dave Blunt's like he's literally built like a house, like
He
actually.
probably weighs as much as a house.
Yeah.
I mean, that man can't go on an elevator. That's for dang gum sure.
Well, he can't walk the stairs either. He
It's
has to find a
first floor
different.
buildings only, man.
I mean, this is the kind of guy that like the chair I'm sitting in right now. His gut would go over the seat of the chair.
But
Like
it does lend itself to the absurdity of celebrity now in America, especially with like the hot to a girl launching a meme crypto coin of like hot
And then
coin,
completely
and then
scamming everyone.
yeah.
well, I think like some of that kind of. I mean, I know people in real life that actually think this girl was like smart, but to me, it just kind of proves that like a lot of men out there are just like simps, man.
I
Like
mean,
they,
yeah. But also, it's like, how can you call this smart? She committed very blatant, very obvious securities and exchange fraud in broad daylight as a public figure. This is a stupid idea by any measure.
yeah, and I think it's just ridiculous that that America's celebrities and famous people, people that we quote unquote admire, are just people that just do stupid stuff.
I mean, we're not in the era of John Wayne's or Johnny Cash's. I mean, where it's like the people at like within our media are actual like moral people with like willing to push good values. It's just vapid absurdity.
Well, I mean, it's just
But
like
I think that's
why
why
am I
like
gonna?
Elon, like I think that's why like Elon, people latch on to Elon because it's like, well, like this is one of the few people, sort of. He's not even really like I mean, he obviously moved to America, but he's not like a like a heritage American kind of figure. But he does sort of embody a more an alternative to that, like where he is trying to launch rockets, whatever you make of that.
He's even kind of gone further back than like the era I was talking about, to where like the prominent men in society or the famous men are like the Cornelius Vanderbilts of the day, or the Rockefellers and the like, where
not a 2-bit prostitute.
He's basically, it seems like he's trying to be a callback to that instead of being the sort of
very Gilded Age prominence.
Yeah, I mean that's how it should be. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know why anyone would even like listen to like some 2-bit prostitute ramble her, gobsmacker on YouTube.
So
I know people think that about me,
but I watched a stream, and one of the things he does the like post show for the viewers mess with him is they choose a podcast and they made him listen to it. It is the absolute most like nothing ever. I don't know how people like this. I mean, she's talking about how her favorite chicken restaurant is Zaxby's.
Well, hey, don't hate on the Zax.
I'm not hating on Zaxby's. I'm just saying, like, if this is all you got for pod, man.
I mean, we'll have a Zaxby's episode if you want. I mean, I'll go down there and get me a.
If we're doing a chicken episode, then I'm going and getting the Lord's chicken. That's what the man in my PFP would want. He would want me to get Chick-fil-A.
Well, I mean, Chick-fil-A is better than Zaxby's, but I mean, Zaxby's, Raising Cane's, you gotta pick Zaxby's.
I might go with Guthrie's.
Well, Guthrie's is underrated. It has its days.
It's good, but it's I can get more at Zaxby's for cheaper.
I mean, we do have some local stuff that I won't get into because I don't want to dox myself, but I mean, if I'm going somewhere for chicken, it's either going to be the fastest and closest, or it's going to be the best.
Yeah, that's very fair. And I would say of all our videos, this is probably the fastest episode we've recorded. And as I said, I have work tomorrow, so I was thinking about probably calling it here tonight, boys.
Well, that's good.
I thank y'all for coming on the first table talk with me. I'm going to be planning to do more of these. Surely more interesting things will come about, and
we do live in interesting times.
We do, and hopefully we'll have more people on here. Hopefully we can get Peter back on here. Maybe we can get some people from the Discord on here, and just get our conversations out there that we have on the box to people. Maybe we'll find us interesting out there. But I thank y'all for coming on, and y'all say goodbye to the audience.
All right, it was good being on. If you want to, I guess I'll show real quick. You can find me on Twitter at X, whatever you want to call it, at Willyyeet12. If you want to see my sometimes unhinged ramblings about history and theology.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter as at Trey50Daniel, and you'll see me talking about all kinds of things, from just ranting about the state of the video game industry to just all kinds of social and political issues.
Sounds good. I mean, that's about what I mean, I don't really even use my Twitter account to post what I think. I usually just comment, DM, or post my videos on there. But I thank y'all for coming on, and hopefully we'll get some more great minds on here, and we'll have maybe some more interesting events that happen over the next few weeks.
Sometimes, though, I hope we don't.
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes that's the best. It'd be better if we could just sit around and drink bourbon and eat Zaxby's. Sometimes.
But fortunately, Xi Jinping cursed us with that old Chinese proverb.
What's that old Chinese proverb?
May you live at interesting times.
We do. All right. Well, with that, we're going to end our first table talk. Well, y'all have a good night. Thank y'all for listening in.
No problem at all. Y'all have a good one.
Take care, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.